Bienvenidos. Welcome everyone to the Wild Parrot Diets mini symposium, where we'll be talking about how lessons from foraging ecology can help improve captive care. I'm Donald Brightsmith, co-director of the Macaw Society, member of the Schubot Center for Avian Health at the Department of Veterinary Pathobiology here at Texas A&M University. I'll be leading off today, and then Romy Nederlof, Dr. Juan Cornejo, Dr. Bianca Murphy, and Dr. Erica Roper will be joining us to round out the rest of the program. I'd like to start off with some thanks to Dr. Gabriela Vigo Trauco for her organization and getting out all the messages that have helped get all of you here. Sorry, Erica, I don't know how Doctor was left off of that. But yes, Dr. Erica Roper. Our speakers today, I'd like to thank as well, listed here on the left, of course, Harrison's Birds Foods for partnering with us to try and get more information out about good parrot diets. And I would like to thank all of you for attending. We've got a great audience here today, and we should be, hopefully we'll start a dialogue that we can continue as we go forward. The first thing I want to talk about is who are you? Who is the audience today? And we have a great, this was as of earlier this afternoon. We may have had a few more sign up, but we have parrot researchers and scientists out there. We have parrot conservation practitioners. So we have people who work in parrot conservation, a few aviculturists or breeders. We have a good number of about 50 different people from rescue centers and wildlife rehabilitation. We have pet owners, and our largest number of pre-registered are the veterinarians. We have a few students and some educators as well. And notice people may have checked more than one. So it's an excitingly diverse audience, and we're really excited about having you here today. Where the audience from? As of yesterday, we had 43 different countries represented, US and Canada, Latin America and Brazil, Europe, Australasia, and a variety of others, which include Asia, Africa, Middle East, and the Caribbean. I apologize to those of you for whom it may be a little bit early, but we also have people who are a little early and those who are a little bit late. So we've pushed it all the way across the globe. So it's a bad time for a lot of you, and I apologize for that. Good. I see someone writing in Spanish que los traducidos ya están funcionando. Me alegra. And of course, there are many different languages. So if you would like to put it in Polish or any other variety of languages, I think Zoom can handle that. So what are the objectives of our mini symposium? And I'll be honest, today's not about creating easy answers and recipes for you to follow. So for those of you who just want to log in and say, okay, if I do this, I'll be able to feed my parrot, that's not really where we're heading. It's more about broadening our understanding of parrot diets. It's about starting a dialogue and taking a new look at the birds that are in our care. And I can do that because my job as a scientist is really to make you think, to change how you see the world. So the one thing I can say is open your minds and let's dive into talking about wild parrots and how that might relate to nutrition and diet in captivity. So if we think about what's the problem that drove us to be here to have this event today, and here's a quote from 2006, so that's a few years ago, from the textbook of clinical avian medicine. Feeding of companion birds has been one of the most challenging aspects of their care, primarily because of a limited nutritional research on all species. But what about now? Well, here we jump forward to 2026, the essentials of parrot medicine and surgery. And the quote here is, issues arising from suboptimal nutrition are considered the primary cause of death in captive parrots. 20 years later, and we're still looking at the same problem. And that's why we're coming to you today to talk a little bit more about nutrition and diets in these birds. So if the problem's nutrition, why look to wild parrots? The goal is to provide a broader perspective on parrots as whole wild organisms. Use studies of wild parrots to take a fresh look at parrot nutrition, and use wild bird information to improve nutrition of captive parrots when it's possible. And also provide a new source of data that's not based on poultry. The question is this how we feed our parrots? Are they chickens with a funny beak? And because traditionally a lot of the research on all bird nutrition came from chickens. So just a quick opening, and I know Romy will talk more to us more about this, but what do wild parrots eat? And if we look here, we can see that tree seeds are 40% of it and fruit pulp at about 35. But there's also flowers and lots of different items as well. But when we look at our core diets, it's seeds and fruits and pulp. However, all seeds are not created equal. And the seeds that these tree seeds that the wild parrots are eating are really not equivalent to the seed mixes that you're likely to find in your local pet store or purchase online. Tropical tree seeds are fundamentally different from a seed mix that you're going to get in a bag. The tree seeds are more like beans, nuts, acorns, etc. So while our speakers today may talk about seeds, let's keep in mind that they're really talking about the left side of the screen, not usually the right side of the screen, with a few exceptions. And then an issue that I wanted to talk about that I'm not sure if others will be able to talk about today is how do wild parrots know what to eat? And honestly, this is a super complex question with almost no empirical data that we could have a really long couple hours of discussion about. But there are a wide variety of important factors. There may be rearing and culture, their early life experience, available food diversity, food taste, hormonal drives, breeding status, species learning from other species, memory and knowledge of the local landscape, and their own personal and long-term experience. And if that's not enough, all of this gets even more complicated when we think about how the world changes by seasons, the physiological changes that birds undergo throughout the year, the annual variations in food availability, and then climate change as well. So we have a very complex landscape in which wild parrots are trying to figure out, what do I do? And to put that in a more visual sense, what options does a wild parrot have when it wakes up in the morning? Here's our parrot waking up in a tropical rainforest in southeastern Peru. And honestly, it probably knows a lot about the surrounding landscape, and now it needs to make the decision of where to go and what to eat. So honestly, I think, and I don't have good data for this, that a parrot should know just about exactly what food is available and where it is. Why? Because yesterday, almost all the same food was available on these big tropical trees. So when it wakes up in the morning, it knows there's one tree over here, maybe 3 down over there, a couple there, a few more over there. And during the breeding season, our scarlet macaws may travel as much as up to 10 kilometers away from the nest on a single foraging event. So what we're looking at is when it wakes up in the morning, where's it going to go? And of all the things that are out there, what is it going to choose? And again, that might include flying 10, 20 or more kilometers in a single foraging trip. And then if we look across the entire year, these birds may roam over huge areas to track food resources. 2,000 hectares or maybe 5,000 acres as they fly from season to season in a circle or out and back looking to track food resources. And we've found that these birds may migrate up to 150 kilometers from their nesting sites just to track the resources in the different areas of their home ranges. So with all these choices, do parrots actually show nutritional wisdom? And nutritional wisdom is an odd concept. Does it mean that the animal just knows what it needs to eat and only eats what it needs so that it comes out with a perfect diet? And honestly, this is another really complex question. And if we were to boil it down to a really short answer, it might come out as sometimes and in some locations. So let's take a look at where some of this wisdom may actually be playing out. Let's look at the clay licks of southeastern Peru, which is an area that I've worked for many, many decades and have learned all sorts of interesting things about the birds. The clay licks of Peru are river-edged cliffs visited by parrots that eat clay. We may get 16 species of parrots, macaws, parakeets, parrotlets. Throw in some guans and pigeons, you may get over 1,500 birds on a great day. So why are these birds using the clay licks? Well, here they are chowing down on this clay. And originally, some people were talking about it might be protection from toxins, but our research really doesn't suggest that that's the case. Instead, what we're finding is they're eating clay for sodium, the major ingredient in salt. There's not much sodium in the Western Amazon basin, very little in the environment and very little in the plant foods. However, it's highly concentrated in some clay layers. These layers down here, 850 to 1600, may have as much clay as Swiss cheese, and honestly has more sodium than a lot of the meats that we consume. And all of our studies support sodium as a main driver of clay lick use. But they don't use it equally all year round. When do our blue-headed pioneers use the clay lick? Well, they use it mostly from July, August, September, maybe a little bit into October, and that's right at the time when they're breeding. And if we look at scarlet macaws, the same thing happens. Right as the eggs start to hatch, the clay lick use spikes up in scarlet macaws. So this suggests that these birds are foraging. This is actually a sample from a crop of a wild scarlet macaw, but during a lot of the breeding season, what we'll find is the parents are actually feeding their babies mud. They're feeding them the clay from these clay licks that are rich in sodium. And they're really only focusing on that at the time the babies need it the most. So what this suggests is we have this kind of paradoxical nutritional wisdom here, where southeastern Peru, the parrots are eating clay the most when they need it the most to raise their chicks. Okay, suggests these birds may be able to have the hormonal and other mechanisms they need to choose the foods they need when they need them. But my question then becomes, will this wisdom hold for all parrots, including those in captivity? What type of landscape does a captive parrot face when it wakes up in the morning? Its landscape is likely to look like this. There's a few perches, there's a food dish, somewhere there's a water dish or a water bottle, but not much more, which means that this bird has limited options and all of them are easy. Do I walk over to the food bowl, or maybe if my cage is big enough at a rescue center, fly a few meters in order to get to it? Or do I go to one food bowl or the other? And the interesting thing now to think about is that birds have not evolved to make good decisions in captivity. They've evolved to live in a giant rainforest where they've got to fly 10 kilometers in order to get places to feed on foods that are difficult to get, but they haven't been domesticated. They haven't been kept in captivity so long that they really know how to make good decisions in captivity. So let's just talk about it here. We did some work at Texas A&M to see if our parrots were taking a bowl of food and choosing a healthy diet out of it. We had equal part of commercial seed mix, some fruits and veggies, and formulated pellets. And there's what our bowls would look like. We had 11 cages of birds, and what did we find? In fact, our parrots did not choose a healthy diet. They chose seeds over the pellets. They also ate some of the veggies, etc. But bottom line, the birds got most of their calories from seeds. And not only that, they chose the highest fat seeds. And the diet they actually consumed, not what was offered, but consumed, had way too much fat and had bad calcium to phosphorus ratios, which impact their health in a wide variety of ways. And when we look up close at which type of seeds they really liked, it was the ones with 49% fat, 46, 38% fats, while they avoided the more healthy oats and buckwheats with the lower fat levels. So once again, chose the ones with the most fat. So when we think about nutritional wisdom, maybe we can think about this child facing a plate of candy, and perhaps I should have put some veggies around the edge. But can we trust for nutritional wisdom? And usually not. And when we think about our own nutritional wisdom, we've evolved in an environment with low sugar, low fat, low salt, and high physical exercise. And now our cravings for salt, fat, and sugar and our changes in lifestyle have led us as humans to a lot of nutrition-based health problems. And while it's not exactly comparable, parrots do face similar health problems and are making similar bad choices when given the options in captivity. So we must be cautious when comparing wild and captive parrot diets. Here we have our captive perch potato on the left and a flying wild bird on the right. And we could compare those to a human couch potato with a high-end athlete. And these two do not need the same diet. And that's a good way to kind of think about our birds in captivity and our birds in the wild, especially in a day like today when we're considering, well, what can we extrapolate in from the wild? But I maintain that there is much we can learn from wild parrot diets. Some species have highly specialized diets. Dr. Juan Cornejo will talk a little bit about thick-billed parrots that live on almost only pine cones, which opens up a whole new can of worms. And then many species eat odd and interesting wild foods in the wild. Dr. Voltura from here at Texas A&M has worked a bit on this. All sorts of interesting things: leaves, soil, invertebrates, insects, wood and bark, sap, roots, charcoal, epiphytes, algae, aquatic invertebrates. A wide variety of things are being eaten beyond that typical core diet. And one of the questions that we still need to think about and try and answer is which ones of these could benefit our captive parrots, benefit them nutritionally, and also benefit them from a enrichment perspective. So what nutritional cues can we learn from wild parrots? And my answer to that is sit back and enjoy the symposium. And with that, thank you very much. I will ask Romy to start sharing her screen, and we will move on with our symposium. Thank you so much.